Then going to the barbershop, sitting around.
That's why it's crazy we chose the name Klippah Talk.
I was about to say, I ain't that. It's a nice little reminder.
Inside of him exists that man. You got to get out of that comfort zone.
I think that's it. All right. Today we have another edition of Klippah Talk, and we feature two guests, and we want to talk about something that is affecting not only the communities in this area, but affecting communities across America. In the very fiber of our existence, every teacher that is taught, everybody has gone out into multiple fields, and they control the fields of America and the careers of America, but yet and still the focal point has been taken away from them. And we're seeing the demise of our economy, we're seeing the demise of our country, and we're seeing the demise of our communities, and it starts with education. So today we have two people that we're featuring that are part of the educational system, and we would like to get their perspective and let the people at home see what work we can do from home, not only for our children, but for the betterment of our communities. So we're going to point out some points of emphasis that has to do with not only education, but turning our classrooms back into classrooms instead of the reels that you're seeing over and over, and hopefully get some community support to help the people that can truly make America take a shift back to what we used to be as far as education. So we have two guests. First, I have my beautiful wife, Takesha Rice, and a friend of mine, Dave, and I'm gonna let him introduce himself first. We're gonna start with Dave, and we're gonna kick this one off. And the name of this is State of Education.
No, thanks for having me, everyone. My name is Dave. I've been in education now over a decade. In the school counselor, it's my position. I've worked at every level, elementary, middle, high school, and in the district. And yeah, it's a little bit about my background.
Well, that's some background.
I mean, you guys want some more? You want some more? I worked in all big districts, Charlotte, another one up north. I don't want to say the name of it. Urban settings, Title I schools. You know, I mean, I originally went to school for teaching. I'm a licensed teacher too. But towards the end of that, when I was doing my student teaching, I said, this ain't for me. But I still want to work with kids. It's like, what's another, how can I pivot? So that's when I got into counseling. Well, that's what I've been doing ever since. Better or worse.
Cool.
Okay, well, I'm Takesha. In the classroom, I go by Miss Rice. And I started off with an education degree. I wanted to start off with subbing first because I wanted to experience the different grades or schools to see, where was I going to plant my feet at, because I didn't want to sign a contract and be bound and feel the school was not a great fit for me. So in the midst of subbing, like a year and a half, I just kind of started to step back and take another route. But I do want to talk about today is in the classroom and as a parent. Try to give two perspectives of, what's kind of going on today. So.
Now, my question is, what made you guys even consider the educational field with the lack of funding, with the power that's taken out of the classroom, and the situation that you guys have been put in? Like, school's not what it used to be. And from your perspective, what made you guys choose the field? Was it the passion for the children, or was it just how important education is?
None of those. Originally come out of high school, I really wanted to be an architect. I did like 3 years of drafting. I love that. But by the time I was out of high school was when the economy was crashing, new construction was like non-existent, like that whole field was going down. And being a young kid, I'm like, well, I got to be an architect. I got to go undergrad. I got to go to grad school. That's a lot of school.
Right.
And when you're young, 6 years seems like a lifetime. So when I ended up going to college, I went to App State, which started off as a teacher's college. They had a really good teaching program there and school counseling program, yada, yada, yada. I was like, well, architecture's not in the cards. What else do I want to do? And I really loved history at the time. I always been a big history buff. So I started off pivoting towards or wanting to do history, secondary education. So middle school, high school, social studies teacher. Then I had a professor that rubbed me the wrong way. And I was like, all right, history's not it. So I went into elementary counseling. Like I said, did that for undergrad, and then towards the end of student teachings, when the state was slashing all the teacher assistant positions and cutting funding, it was a bad time to go into education. Not this, I guess, there's ever a good time anymore. And, after doing student teaching, I was like, I can't do this, or I didn't want to do it. Really, it wasn't that fun for me. So that's when I was like, all right, let me go into school counseling. I can still work with the kids, but I can work with them about all the other stuff, social emotional stuff, career stuff, life skills, all that kind of stuff.
Good.
And that's how I got to where I am today.
So that has more effect what you're doing has more effect than the actual classroom, because you're monitoring their behavior from afar. And you get to find out the interaction, the involvement with the parents, etc. So you really have the opportunity, I would say, to change the course of a child with the cooperation of the parent and the child.
Yeah, you have the opportunity, but teachers are with the kids more than anybody else, especially the elementary. Teachers probably spend more time with the kids than the parents do, especially if the parents are working. You know what I mean? So I still think teachers have the greatest role and the biggest impact.
Yeah.
Personally.
Now, in your perspective, what made you want to dive into the education? I know you and I talked about it, and I disagreed with you taking the educational route because I knew the downfalls and the effects that it would have on you, because I know you personally, and I know your compassion that you have for children. So I'm not trying to answer your question by saying your compassion, but I do know that you have a passion for children. So what was your reason for choosing the educational field?
My reason for choosing the educational field, I have had encounters with a lot of parents from all different kind of backgrounds, and our children play sports, and a lot of times, I'm the house mom of the neighborhood, so when children come over there, I can kind of tell what's going on or whatever. And also in the classroom, what made me come a teacher, I'm sorry, that's right, because most kids are, a lot of kids is dying. Indeed, what the words they use for that. So,
All right. You wanted to be that person that they could talk to?
yes.
Or you wanted like that confidant or the...
Well, yeah, because a lot of times the kids, some people don't understand, I think, that kids are more like, they're sponges. So they're going to suck up everything around them, everything that they see, everything that they hear. So, and a lot of times when you go into, just like in the classroom, if a teacher has a child with a behavior issue, we're not going to look at that like, oh, why are you dealing with me? No, that's going to be, we're going to focus on other children, but we're going to focus on that child with a behavior issue, because we know that something's going on in the home. A lot of times, children, all they want is love and attention. They want somebody to say that they care, to know that they're cared, and they love them. You can't, and every child you have to, with me being a parent of 5 children, I learned that you have to deal with them in their own love language. My husband not like, isn't that? But I'm saying, but you have to deal with them according how their personality is. Some children, all your young elementary kids, you have to be very vulnerable with them. You have to listen. You got to be like, your love will radiate from them. A child know who loves them, who don't love them. They know who care, who does not care. And a lot of times, because of, I don't know how far you guys want to go with this conversation. That's why I say it.
But it's...
A lot of times, kids that come from broken homes or single parent homes, I'm not knocking any parent. I don't. But a lot of times as a parent, you already frustrated. And sometimes it might be a single parent, you having to take on all this load. You have to do things, so when your kid do something, a lot of times you find yourself lashing out. And you've been probably struck the child and said something out of way to them. And it's not it's sometimes, some people it's mean, but sometimes it's out of anger and frustration. Mm-hmm. But you don't realize that once that child is once you do something or say something wrong for them, it kind of breaking them of who they really are, or you'll find them, they may start just being quiet or sitting out to themselves. And then you got other kids that have older siblings at home that the smallest one might get bullied, or it could be from anything in the home, and they'll go home and lash out. They'll go to school and they'll lash out on other kids, and they'll start hitting on kids. And then that's when the problem come in. I don't. They probably can attest to this about when something happens. A lot of times, the parents want to come at the teachers instead of you coming in the classroom and ask what's going on. Well, little Johnny been hitting everybody, and then when the other parents come, you want to come up there. Why are you writing my child? Or why are you doing this? Instead of you taking a adult, cordial approach and say, hey, what's going on with Johnny? Because my thing is, I'm gonna ask you, I'm not coming at you in an intimidation way. Like, well, is anything going on in the home? Do you guys, is it what's changing, or is he always having this type of behavior? And a lot of times the parents, and then with the other side of that is the other the child who got hit, they're gonna come here and say, well, why are you not doing anything? We are doing everything. We doing everything we possibly can. We got 20 or 30 kids in the classroom, and we're trying to separate these two, especially those teachers who don't have a teacher assistant. We try to keep our eyes on them all the time, and when we come at you, it may not seem, if it happens again, okay, we are trying our best to avoid that situation, whether it be in the classroom or the playground. And the parents say, well, this keep happening. And we understand after a second time, then I feel like, okay, the child, we try to remove them, or we have someone to come in and sit with them. But I don't want to make it seem like, oh, the teacher's not doing their job. We are doing our job. We are doing our job. And I don't even know how I got into that, but y'all stop me when y'all ready.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question that I would like to ask is, looking at the current situation of education, how would you guys give us your perspective of what school was when you went to school? And I would like to follow that up with, like, what is your perception of school now? Like, are there any major differences that you see in how the educational system was for you and how it is current?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I go first. I haven't been in high school in almost 20 years, right? So of course there's gonna be drastic changes. And I feel like every generation always says, like, oh, like the younger generation, you guys got so easy, right? Or how many of you heard your parents say that, or your grandparents? A lot of you guys got easy. But it's true. Well, it got easy. Like, I know now, like, even the grading scale now is 10-point grading scale. So like all you have to do is make a 60 to pass. Used to be an F, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, shoot, most kids get a 50 just for showing up and just turning in some basic work. So you don't have to do much to pass. So I feel like, that's become a lot easier from like a academic standpoint, just being able to pass your courses, especially at like the higher level, a little more involved when you're elementary. That's gotten easier. Behavior-wise, things are drastically different, but they just have taken a huge turn ever since COVID hit. You know what I mean? Whether it's just kids a little more like not as social or reserved, or I tell you, on their phones 24/7. That's the craziest thing, is that how technology, like, it's very beneficial for society, but it's like ruining the kids at the same time.
Right.
It's great to have access to all this information if it's for good purposes, but then, it's constantly with the TikToks or trying to film fights that happen in school, or dumb stuff, or all the cyberbullying and group chats about all kinds of dumb stuff like that. That to me has a very negative effect on kids these days. And when I see certain districts across the nation, they're like, oh yeah, we're banning phones, like kids can't have their phones anymore. Like, that's the best thing you can do.
Right.
So we have a policy at my school where, obviously kids can have their phone, and some parents make a big deal, like, they gotta have their phone. I gotta know where they're at all times. What if there's an emergency? Like, that's why there's a front office. You know what I mean? Like, like 20 years ago, like, I didn't get a cell phone until I think I started driving. I was like 16, so
right.
I lived fine before that, you know what I mean? Pretty sure you guys didn't get phones till you were older. Somehow we survived.
Yeah.
So
that's the jab was just doing that.
But like that, I don't know. Phones to me is like the big thing, and just society's changed as a whole. Probably the past 8 years, I say things are really taking a turn.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go off on a tangent on all that. But academically, I think it's easier for these kids to pass and get through. Then on the social side of things, it's gotten more intense. Just kids are withdrawn. I see you see more apathetic kids. I don't want to call them all lazy, but there's a lot of kids who aren't, let's say, motivated anymore for anything.
Understood. would you think that the education is watered down, or is it still the same curriculum? Like,
Well, if anything, the curriculum's got more intense because they're constantly tweaking and adjusting it. You know, that's what this state school board does, and then your local board. We're all elected officials, by the way, so that's what people got to keep in mind when they go to vote. Because no one ever thinks about the people making. Education takes such a backseat. Everybody's just concerned with taxes or, abortion is a big hot topic, all the religious stuff, things like that. So probably the people who are making the policies and the standard course of study, they're elected for the most part. You elect the governor appoints 8 people to the State Board of Education. Then you got the lieutenant governor who sits on it, who's elected, the state treasurer who's elected. I mean, these are all people that we put in power to make the big decisions when it comes to curriculum and everything else. Then at the local level, school board runs it, and the superintendent is the CEO of the school system, right? And, the school board hires the superintendent, but we elect the school board. So at the end of the day, it really falls on us. We've got the power, but now I feel like I'm going off on, I don't want to get too much power.
we're not using it.
Well,
So we're really not using the power. The people aren't using the power to affect. We have more. In other words, what you're saying is, if we would have used the process correctly, we could bring change from our living rooms or from the voting booths.
yes, absolutely. But education is not a priority in this state, really the country. When you think about it, it's, third, fourth down the rung of priorities, right? What's everybody concerned about? Not finances, right? Inflation.
Right.
Everything else. Education takes a backseat. Now, we have the power, but in this state, it's tough because I know there's a state that's more gerrymandered in North Carolina. So good luck having your vote count. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's another podcast. You guys.
Right. But so from your perspective, what was school like for you? What was your experience like in contrast to today's school?
Then and now, few things were put in place. We get prayed in school. We prayed in school, and there was, in today's society, call it corporate punishment. I don't call it corporate punishment. It was more discipline. It was more structure. Today, you can't say that's to this kid. If you say the wrong thing, you're going to end up losing your job. There's no prayer in the school, so that's one thing. There's no, the children just get to come and do as they please. And elementary school, you can kind of shape and mold them. You can kind of control that environment. When you get into middle school, parents who have children in middle school, I have teenagers. I'm just saying it right now. And I'm pretty sure a lot of teachers will agree with me on this. For the most part, a lot of teachers now do not want to teach middle school because the kids are just going through these hormonal changes.
So you think it's more the transitional phase and with that transitional phase, I would say, like you just said, hormones. So the hormones are raging inside of teenagers, and they're at the beginning stages of these hormones transitioning in their body. Then with the inclusion of all this technology, the TikTok, the various social media formats that they can get information and get introduced to before their young minds are mature, do you feel like that's the reason for that big change in middle school?
Well, two things. Tug of war, because they kind of leave in a little elementary stage. Oh, I think I'm grown now. So you thinking you're adult, but you're not an adult.
Right.
Am I right?
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that, they don't have no discipline. They don't have no respect for adult authority.
Okay.
They don't listen to you. You talk to them, and you say things. But I'm the type of parent. I'm the type of teacher. When I go in the classroom, if I have to do a middle school or high school, once you kind of introduce yourself to them, okay, it's like, okay, it's right, start playing. Middle school, I just go straight in there. Hey guys, listen, and I assert myself up front because I'm letting them know that I am the authority figure in this classroom. You're not going to talk to me in kind of way. You're not going to disrespect me. You're going to respect the rules in my classroom. And if not, you're going to get your things and leave. Now, middle school, I have a rule. If I'm serving in the middle school that day, if I have to ask you to leave and you take your thing and leave, you ain't coming back to my class that day. I don't know where you go to the office or wherever you're going, you're not coming back because one, there are some of those kids in there that actually want to learn. You don't get to be a disruption to that. Two, a lot of parents, based off of my experience and my experience, well, I can't speak for other teachers. Another problem that I have is with the parents because a lot of kids go home and they tell these little kids go home and all they want to do is tell their side of the story about what the teacher said. They ain't telling their kid that you don't knock the papers off the roll or you don't disrupt the classroom and you yelling across the class or you throwing things. You ain't telling your mama that. And even if you did, like the mama, the parent, I ain't gonna say the mama, whatever parent, they coming back and you arguing back and forth with the teacher. And see, my thing is like this, when you finna go back and forth, which once they get to the administrator, it's into their hands, but as a teacher, we have the right to say, okay, we can't put them out on the first try. Okay, it's beginning of the school year. We gonna give you a chance, but we not finna deal with that all year. You going to, I don't know, let me just say it like this. Some children need what we don't have in school anymore. You used to have, you used to at school have the classes where, kids that have anger issues or whatever the case may be, because, parents have a right to put their kids in a normal class. Then you have kids that will have, that have major behaviors. So, and the parents get mad. Like, for instance, I just want to use this for an example. When I was studying one time, and this little girl, she said it, and I tried my best to deal with her, sit beside her and talk to her. And she literally told me that she called her teacher a B word. And her mom didn't do anything about it. So, but the parent expect for her kid, the teacher, to come for her child to come to school every day after she don't call her out of her name, she disrupting the class, and everything be okay. And then you mad when they get suspended. Please tell me how that works. Does that make sense? So my thing with the parents is, in this middle school, I do want to say that please stop allowing your child or your children to disrespect other authority figures. Now, yes, sometimes teachers, we can get in all up, we can get in all up in it. Sometimes we just have to step out there like that. We ain't touching nobody and we ain't cursing, but we have to be assertive with your child to let them know who is the adult authority figure. Now, when your child get kicked out of school and they ain't there no more, then you go around talking, well, I don't this, that. You want to have everything to say. But my question to you is, what are you doing at home? Because that's exactly where it starts at. And the next statement that I want to say to all grades, to all levels out here to the parents, we're not babysitters. If you're sending, if you're sending your kid to school just to be there to get out of your hair, that's what we're not for. We're not here to be babysitters. So, I don't know. I won't say more, but do you have anything? Because you're a counselor. You see these parents and the teachers come in. How do they respond to you?
Oh, just depends. You never know what you're going to get when you make that phone call home. That's why it's important, I think, whether you're a teacher or anybody that works with those kids, is you got to make positive phone calls home. It can always be like, Tony's in trouble again. He's beating up on whoever or cussing out the teacher. So that goes a long way. But then when you do have to do those negative phone calls home, you never know what you're going to get. You going to say something?
Yeah. Well, see, Tony was a class clown. I wasn't beating up nobody. Nah, but I did want to say, I think when it comes to kids, it starts at home. Like, once you set the foundation, like what we did with our kids was that 3, 4, it's time to go to school. So when we said that, it was, you gotta sit down, sit still, and you gotta be attentive to whatever's going on, to like it was, if it was reading, or just sit here and be quiet. And no, you can't go to sleep, because in school you're not gonna be able to go to sleep.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we did those little things to get to get them to be able to sit still and pay attention to something without going to sleep or without disruption. So I think that doing that early started good for my kids for when they entered into school. Now that middle school, like from what I seen with my kids and what I see with a lot of kids that come through the barbershop and kids and talking to teachers and resource officers, the middle school is that hard transition because it's like I'm not a kid no more, but I'm not quite a teenager or adult. So it's like they trying to find themselves, and what they looking at is their phones and what's around them, what they see every day. And it's like you trying to depict which way to go.
Like when you said it's a big transition, right? You go from elementary school where you're in the same classroom pretty much all day long. You might leave to go to your specials or, art class, PE. You're with the same teacher all day long. You come to middle school, you get a little more independence, right? Now you got multiple teachers. You got to get in between your classes and navigate that. Maybe you got to dress out for PE and all this other stuff, right? You got a lot more freedom, independence. And when you're 12, 13, 14, they're learning how to navigate that, right? And then you throw in all the, phones and all the stuff from society. That's why it's so tricky. I mean, middle school's notorious for, like, no one ever wants to work in a middle school. You know what I mean? Because it can be crazy. I enjoyed my time in middle school. The kids were a lot of fun. And I like that age because they're still, like you were saying earlier, like, elementary school, they're very impressionable, right? You can make a big difference. You can make an impact. And you can still do that at middle school. High school is a lot harder. By that time, you got a kid who's 15, 16, 17, 18. A lot of these kids been through a lot nowadays. They grow up so fast. They see everything on the phone, you know what I mean? Or they're experiencing stuff in the real world. So it can be a lot tougher to have that kind of impact, a positive impact. It still happens, don't get me wrong, but middle school is a good time to really get a hold of them too and try to steer them in the right direction if you can. But I think, again, it all starts at home. But I think the big problem in this day and age is people expect the school systems to do everything now. They want the schools to raise their kids. It used to be you come to school, you learn your subjects, and you go home. Now it's, all right, now we're covering all the mental health issues. We're doing the educational stuff. These kids don't really go to, maybe some go to church, maybe some don't. But now you're working on how to function in society and how to interact with people, and you're doing it all. You know what I mean? You're being the surrogate parent or aunt or uncle, whoever have you. And more and more is put on our plates. And guess what? Money is not. It just go down and down and down and down. But people still want to complain that we're not doing enough. But apparently they just want us to do everything, apparently.
And you get what you pay for. And on top of that, the flip side of the coin is what people fail to realize is we are human beings. We have families to go home to. Because when I first started teaching, I was riding off of the high, but time go on. My husband can attest to this. There were just sometimes I would come home, I'd been on have a road that like, I don't want to lash out at anybody, but I'll just, in my household, say, you know what, guys, I had a long day. Some days they respect it. Some days it's like, well, Mama, I don't care, I need them, And I had to learn how to kind of turn it off, because we deal with you got 20, 30 kids, different personalities in this classroom. I have 5 kids. Most people don't have a lot of kids, but with 5 different personalities, my children ain't going nowhere, and that's a lot. But imagine having 5 times more of that amount, because you still in the classroom as a teacher most of the times, we're being a parent, we're being a teacher, we're being a mother because we loving those children, we nurturing them, we teaching them.
And fathers.
Well, fathers too. I know. Yeah, we're being even the male teacher, the females and the male teacher. We're kind of being more like just like he said. Now we having to put on more than one hat. When we went to school, the teacher was the teacher and the parent was the parent. Now we got to be the teacher and the parent. And with us, I'm not like, bro, when we run a strict household with our kids. Now I'm taking this right here. We, in our household from kindergarten to high school or college or whatever the case may be, we got one phone call a year. Because listen, my grandfather was in the military. We got the one phone in our household. If one person get in trouble, it ain't going to be this phone call, that phone call. That one person going to be the example of our household. So, and we have, not only that, we developed a relationship with the school and the teachers we try to get involved with everybody, not just the teachers. We try to have a relationship with counselors, the principals. That's just how we operate. Because, if a teacher ain't available, you have to go in there with the principal or the counselor. A lot of time, if you've already established their relationship with them, everybody can be on the same page coming in, right? Or you can kind of cut out a lot of tension. You can have a respectful conversation. Because like with us, it's like, okay, they'll call us first. Miss Rice or Mr. Rice, because they know that's what's going on in here. And I'm about like, bro, we had our children sit down. That's one thing, kid. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one thing a lot of parents don't disappoint. When you was growing up, you had to sit down 2 hours or a couple hours a day. You need to learn how to be still. I don't care if you read, I don't care if you go to sleep, I don't care what you're doing. You're going to sit there and you're going to be quiet. Now, these children, just like he said, they got so much attention. Elementary school, they can't have their class, they can't have their phones out. But it's still, when they do, they jumping around, they moving around a lot. The only time in elementary school, based off my experience again, where these children literally sit down and be quiet, is when they have a tablet in their hand or we showing them something on that TV screen. That's the only time. Any other time, you got some kid or they're going to be. And we don't expect elementary kids. That's why they have some classes they have 2 recesses. Or we have our little outbreak session because they burn a lot of energy, But I just, again, it starts in the home. It starts in the home. And like I said, if you I can't talk to the principal there because the principal ruling and this and that. Just find a common ground with somebody. Just find a common ground. Try to get more, see past the teacher so you don't put all the weight on her. Because she ain't the only one in the school. You understand what I'm saying? Even when you dropping your kids off in the morning, wave and smile at the security guard. I the principals out there in the mornings and stuff too. Just something that simple as a wave. How you doing? Good morning. You ain't even having a conversation. You ain't got time to have no conversation because everybody moving. I just
think that's just a good rule of thumb for life. Is all about having a good relationship.
Yeah.
Whether you get a corporate job or you do something else, you don't want to be wait, can you swear on this? Well, you like to, you get more with what they say, honey the vinegar, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it pays to have good relationships with people.
Yeah.
You want to.
I think they need to bring paddling back to school. Nah, I'm just playing.
It's still, I think corporal punishment, I believe, is still legal in North Carolina. It's just up to every individual district whether they want to go. And I'm pretty sure however many there are, 100, whatever.
I had a bad experience with that in elementary school because
that's one reason why.
Yeah, he thought he was gonna paddle me, and and I had another decision. Like, nah, we're gonna
make no more for these kids.
But yeah, school, man, just talking to kids from outside the school in a barbershop. Like Rice can attest to this too. But just sitting here talking to young kids, and you cutting their hair and you talking to them about what they got going on, and I just be like, well, why you do that? Why you say that? Like, what make you feel like you can talk to an adult like that?
Like,
When I was in high school, you never hear like a student cuss a teacher out or drop the F word all the time or the N word all the time. Now you be in the hallway for duty and the kids walking by dropping the N word left and right, F you, F this, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? And it's just like, what are you gonna do? Write every kid up for swearing? You know what I mean? So you gotta keep it moving. But where are they getting that from?
right? So, listen at the conversation. The parent not being involved as much as they used to. And when you relate, I think a lot of parents, when you guys make calls and you call that parent, a lot of people don't want to be held accountable for what they're not doing. And everybody's experienced it, whether it was education, whether it was just a normal interaction. When you point out something that a person's not doing, a lot of times through pride and other things that the person may be dealing with, a lot of people will put up a wall. So they will get aggressive. They try to avoid that situation. or avoid the fact that they're not doing what they should be doing. So is this kind of what you guys are running into? Like you running into parents when you point out a problem, they get aggressive towards you instead of dealing with the facts. Or they don't, like say for example, you call a parent and you tell the parent, hey, they've missed XYZ amount of days. Is there a reason why they're missing these days? And you're saying it from a concerned standpoint because they're missing a lot of information that they're going to be tested on. So you're just trying to find out, is there something we can do? Like, you're trying to look for a resolution for the absences, but you point out the absences and then they come with come in defense. Or you talk to them about their failing grades, which the absences are part of the reasons why they're failing. So when you point these issues out, do you feel a lot of parents, are they receptive? Or more parents defensive? And does that go back to like the different roles that you guys play? You're no longer teachers, you're counselors, you're training them up for society versus instead of the home training up. So you guys are taking on the load of raising like nannies in a sense.
Yes.
Hey, we're not babysitters, pal.
But I'm saying they're trying to turn you.
But that's
what
what
I'm saying.
they say outside. It's not right.
Yeah, a lot of times it's a glorified daycare for some of these parents. You know what I mean? Especially at a young age, you got to think, daycare is so expensive. By the time if the kid can't get in pre-K, then when they turn 5, you want to get them in a kindergarten, right? But some they don't take it too seriously, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Right. But parents are hit or miss. I got a lot of good parents. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But you tend to remember the bad ones. You know what I mean?
Right.
I have a lot of interactions with the police, like your last time, but you remember the bad ones versus the good ones usually. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it just depends. I think a lot of parents are receptive when I give them a call and be like, hey, is everything all right? Johnny's missed like the past 2 weeks of school, and they might have something legit going on, or it might be, I didn't know that. I drop them off at the bus stop every day because I'm in high school, so some of these kids just skip.
Right.
Or they're off running the streets doing whatever have you. So it just depends. And then I don't think, some do get upset. Maybe they're having a bad day or they got a lot going on themselves, working 2 jobs, and you got a single mom with, raising 3 kids. But it really just depends.
Yeah. Now I want to get back up what he's saying now. This is one of the problems that I have. I don't think teachers should have to put 2 and 3 the permission slip or parent slip or all type of papers.
You're speaking on elementary.
Paper to highlight that this ain't been signed. Yep. It does not, and I understand working parents. I understand you have a busy schedule. Take 5 minutes out of your day. You need to take longer than 5 minutes. But I'm just, for the parents who just don't want to do it, all I ask is 5 minutes. Open your child's bag. Open the folder. See what their behavior chart was for today. Sign it off and initial it. And as long as we then put books on for you to read, sit down and read with your children. If the teacher don't assign books, assign things to them.
Right.
Don't just have your kid come to school every day and at the end of the week, or you send home folders, mainly elementary. You send home folders on Thursday and Friday. When they come back, they still got someone had a whole, like, what your mom doing? Not your mom. You don't say that to the child. We don't say anything to them. We just saying it out here. It's like, what a parent doing? Well, they not checking your folder. Okay, if you miss a day or 2, okay, we get that. We tired. But you missing every day. And your child still getting on here, or permission slip, we got to send 3, 4, change the color of the slip. Maybe I'm thinking, okay, if I highlight a pink slip, you going to know this important. Versus you just leaving it in there. Or you wait till the day of to call the teacher. Well, then the kid come home, because I'm telling you, with elementary kids, if a field trip or something like that involved, or they need permission to do a special day or something at school, that kid's gonna get on your nerves. That kid's gonna come every day, and they gonna remind you, well, mama, Daddy, we got such at school. And when you don't, why are you not signing the paper? So you put stress on the child. They don't have to. All you gotta do is say, follow me. Follow, just come at me. I'm not saying too much. And I'm doing, it's just too much.
I mean, you're speaking your piece.
Yeah, I think you're expressing a lot of frustrations a lot of teachers have with parents. And unfortunately, I don't want to say that's the norm, but I think as the years have gone by, it's more and more uncommon where you have parents like that who aren't signing their kids' folder because they're not checking stuff, and they just basically you send the kid off to school and you expect everything to be okay, and they're handling over there.
Right.
And then in those situations, that's when you get the egg parent on the phone, because the only time you ever talk to them is when some band goes down.
Right.
Because they're not involved on a regular day-to-day basis or for the good stuff. So unfortunately, I mean, it happens more often than not. I think in your more economically disadvantaged schools and areas, you see that a lot more just because the parents, they got a lot going on, right? I don't want to give everybody that excuse, but you know what I mean?
But you got to get, again, 5 minutes. 5 minutes. But then, let me tell you the flip side of that. Those same parents who ain't checked that folder. Remember the phone call that you got to make?
Mm-hmm.
Or the same parent who ain't checked the folder, who not involved. School starts in August. They I'm calling you to about March or April. The school year almost over. Really? You ask me questions about a communication folder that we've been trying to get you to look at all year. And now you want to come back and say, hey, Johnny did X, Y, Z. I got me. Jones is making up names, but and you want to ask questions when you had the opportunity to address it all year. To me, I just feel like you're being selfish. You're not being fair to the child. They don't ask to be here. They don't know what's going on. They're young. They are not they're not the caretakers of the word. You don't have to be parent. We don't have a blueprint of being a parent. We grow as we go, you know? So, but at the end of the day, as a parent, I feel like whether your kid is below or your kid's in that stellar, we desire our children to have more, to grow more than what we do. And like I said, now, I know our papa. Well, our papa, right? So I want to talk about my perspective as a parent now, because I talked about it as a teacher. My perspective as a parent. So we all had 2 small kids, right? And so, and Papa said, well, he made a statement saying, well, if you don't want a black man to know something, you put it in the book. From that day on, I said, Lord, you know what? And I'm not putting no race in there. I'm not putting anything in here, whatever the case may be, because it don't matter what color you are. You need to start it again. It starts at home. When our children, by the time my children, majority of my kids was 3, they would learn how to read. By the time they was 5, they know how to read, write, and not only work on that a second language. But you don't have to. You just want to expand your kids' category. We stay involved. Again, we was always involved. If you work, you don't have time. Again, you can't volunteer at the schools. Sign the folders. But we set a standard in our household. Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is number 1. Education is number 2. Another reason why, listen, we got 5 kids. I ain't finna be spending my whole retirement on them. You know, so you put a lot of times people come from broken home. What they say when they mess up? Well, I did it because my mom and my dad, right? Ain't that what they gonna say? Do y'all agree or disagree?
Yeah.
I don't know what type of household you came from. Me and my husband, if we're not bringing. Oh, and he'll Look, you know what I'm saying?
No, I'm just bad. That's the thing I always do.
I heard somebody say, well, I did this or because of my parent or I did this.
That's what they know, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right.
Because you aren't doing what you taught in a home. And that's what I said. Like, we just made sure that our children were well educated, well rounded, you know.
Prepared for society.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that goes into my next question. Like, sitting in the chair of a parent or from the mind of a parent that exists throughout communities, the whole intent that our perspective is when a child goes to school, that's in preparation for their future.
And
from what I'm hearing, you know, you guys work on the inside. The preparation of the future has to be a combination of the parent and the schools. So we can see the decline in our society because you guys are being given more responsibility and it's taking a load off the parent. So the parent, I know a lot of people when they graduate, I see them every day. And the young men and women that we talk to, when they come in, you and I, every year, we asking like, soon as the senior year starts, I'm asking them like, what have you already applied to schools? And, you know, then my partner here counter, I'm like, if you haven't applied to schools and education isn't, you're not going to pursue further education, what skill or what trade, what skills or what trades are you looking into? So most kids are leaving school now and they have no idea what they're going to do next. And I know, like what you were saying with us, most of our kids let us know by the time they were 8 or 9 what they want, what their future was going to be. Like our daughter, she studied law. We have a son that just graduated as an engineer, and that was what he wanted to do. And our other kids, you know, one was business, one was he wanted to do computers. And Nehemiah just changed over, and he said that he wanted to get into computers, etc. So the preparation, is there anything that the schools can do to get parents to start, you know, like, is there a document that can be sent home or anything that can be done to get them to start putting that attention on, get your child ready at an early age for the direction they want to go? And I think if there was some type of communication that could be made and it could be implemented to where they had to be involved, like some type of career mode. We need some, because that will take the load off you guys in the classroom. If you have a child that is focused on, I want this career, or I'm gonna do this, they're less likely to come to school and you have the issues that you have, because you have a lot of kids that have no direction. You know, and so, you know, when there's no direction, there's mass confusion. And I think from my perspective, in my opinion, hearing what you guys are saying, you got a bunch of kids coming in who go home, do whatever they want to do, no structure, and then come to school where you have structure, but you're spending more time trying to get the kids under control than you are teaching.
I would say let's start with resources. Let's start with some type of program where we can offer more single parents. I don't want to say single mom, where single parents or low income families, where introduce them, helping them prepare the parents for getting a GED if they don't have a high school diploma. Because now, even with college, you can do things remote. You know, you can go to school online. You know, you can try to go get a degree online or something. And a lot of times, if the parent have not been taught something, or if that parent came, it's like go back to generational curses. If they come from somebody who ain't educated, they was never educated, then how you expect them to educate their generation?
Right.
So if we can, again, goes back to education. If you can start beginning to prepare resources or help these parents or whatever who are less educated, because once they get educated, and it will motivate them to educate their children.
So it goes back to what we've heard since we were, if you were ever in an educational environment, people have always said knowledge is power.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a society that functions without the power because we lack the knowledge. And I'm saying this doesn't have anything to do with education. It just has to do with life in general. This society flourishes off of the lack of knowledge. Like, if people don't know how to have good credit, they pay no interest. You know, and so like I'm seeing systemically I'm beginning to wonder, systemically, are we watering down and undressing education to make more profit? Because when I look at the curriculum, they have broadened the horizon. I look at my children, especially the baby girl. I look at her curriculum, and I'm like, this is an expanded curriculum. But where's the physical books? Which I know technology has replaced books. But then then I look at the elementary kids. We had the big pencils when we were little. You had to learn how to write. So I'm saying, has technology replaced education? Like smartphones. Each and every one of us in this room. When you were younger, you remember phone numbers. How many phone numbers do we remember now?
I was talking to someone about that the other day.
Yeah,
I remember mine. That's about it now.
right.
I think we all guilty of this, right? Or no?
Right. So most of us. And that's why I'm saying, like, myself, I see the reversal of education by, they call it a smartphone, but this phone is empty until we put our knowledge in. And so once we put our knowledge into the smartphone,
It dumb us down.
it's dumbing us down.
Yeah.
And so the question needs to be asked. And this is dealing with, now it's still education I'm tying it into, but when you look at the world, the system that we live in as a whole, we're putting more things on the grid, electric cars, and you and I talk about it a lot. You want to bring more electric cars to a grid that can't even support the heating and cooling during peak systems. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying to parents, we have to get back to the original phase of learning where you're reading books, you're writing on pen and paper, and don't trust in the technologies, because I don't think that our grids and our system can support all these things that we implement. We're beginning to put so much pressure on the grids and the clouds and everything, to where if these things go down, our children will be in a state of uneducation. Because we're looking at the kindergartners. They press a button and it reads to them. They press a button for the answer. So they're not having to read, nor are they having to write. So are we uneducating our kids and making them dependent on technology? Then if this technology ever fails, what kind of society will we have?
Oh, everybody's dependent on technology.
Right.
It's and us. Everything.
Right.
Everything's technology.
But we have the bare necessities. If you had to go back, if there was not a computer or there was no technology for you to depend on, you would still know how to read and write. But we're looking at a generation that won't have that capability if these grids go down.
So we have that because we're coming up. That's how the way of the world.
Right.
The way the world's changed.
Right.
I mean,
but do you think
the whole point is not to go
Right.
like, unless there's some crazy something happens.
Right.
That's not going to happen. We're not going to go back to using a phone book and all this other,
Right. I don't think
stuff and textbooks and everything like that. You know what I mean? Because that's just the natural order of things. Society's ever evolving, right?
Right.
I don't think it's technology not destroying education. I mean, it's incorporated into it. That's
right.
how things are going right now. I mean, they still have books like the English classes. They still got their, Lord of the Flies or whatever the heck they're reading in class or whatever. But a lot of it falls back to like budget, right? You can do more stuff on technology, so you ain't got to spend the money on physical textbooks or.
Right.
I can remember we had a meeting the other day. It was like, I can't tell you how much money is spent on boxes of paper. There's like so much money just for that, right? Because they print out stuff. Well, you pivot to technology, you don't got to print out 10,000 sheets of paper.
Right.
I mean, so.
Versus you can just have a school book. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on kids not learning how to write in cursive anymore? Because it's something like you ain't gonna be able, you gotta sign on paper.
Yeah, I mean, you can still learn how to sign your name, but most people don't even sign their name in cursive when I say things. But I mean, who writes letters anymore?
Hello.
You write a letter to anybody recently? Mail it to them? No, you send an email though, right?
But that is something.
And you go into a bank and you gotta sign a legal document.
Yeah. You don't have to sign in cursive though.
Yes.
When I sign stuff, I just do my initials.
But they are bringing in cursive back to schools. I did hear that.
Really?
I talked to.
Yeah.
I cut a principal at a middle school, and me and him talked, and he was saying that they are incorporating that back into schools. Because for a long time they did. Like, I know a lot of kids that don't have a signature. They just print their name out. Yeah. And which is cool. I guess that can be your signature. But I was always taught you wanna have a signature that can't be duplicated.
Right.
So, and then me, when I was 9, 10 years old, my goal was I was gonna be a football player. So I used to write my autograph every day. Like I'm in my room just signing my autograph because I know one day somebody gonna want this autograph. So my mama gonna be rich one day. Cause I know she got saved at least one of them pieces of paper.
Yeah. When's the last time you could read a doctor's signature though?
Yeah.
Never.
You know what I mean? Yeah, they know cursive. They're pretty smart people, I would like to think.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and another thing they just brought back last year, this current school year, they just brought back where it's required for kids to take government economics, personal finance.
Yeah, economics and personal finance. It's a graduation requirement for social studies. One they got to take.
Yes. Well, I think, why was it taken out in the first place? That goes to, again,
Dumb it down.
the young adults don't go into the real world. You're not giving them the immediate, you just now making them meet the requirements. What about the kids before that? That just goes with parenting, because that's why we teach y'all.
Yeah, I feel like it's good because I made my kids take a finance class.
Yes.
Not really made them take it, but I convinced them. This is something you're gonna need.
Right.
This is something you're gonna need, but I feel like that is something that has to be taken care of in home.
Yeah.
So, cause
Ideally, yeah.
my oldest son, me and him sit down, and I was like, listen, bro, I'm gonna break it down, the science to it. Like, this is my check. Like, I showed him my check, and these are the bills. So, out of this, 2 times a month, I gotta get all this done. Plus, I gotta make sure you eat. You got clothes. We got gas in the cars. So I need you to learn how to do this. You need to know how to do this, because one day you're gonna be out here, and just because you make $1,000 on this one check, don't mean you can spend 99 of it.
Exactly, because if you don't know how to budget, you gotta be back.
Yeah, so it's a good thing that they brought it back, but I think it's more personal, and it's easier when you learn that at home.
Yeah, and that is true.
But it's a lot of homes who don't teach that.
Yeah.
Because
It's a lot of homes that don't teach a lot.
It's generational. I'm gonna use the black community for example. I used to listen to a lot of older people when I was younger. The whole purpose back then, they didn't teach finance. They didn't teach the importance of education. They taught you got to make ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
And that is to me, that's the evolution of survival. Like, you making ends meet, you're just trying to survive. So they didn't teach savings. They didn't teach budget. They didn't teach responsible spending. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so well, not to cut you off, but me and you done had this conversation, and I was like, not to knock my parents at all, because I got great parents.
Right.
But it was, make sure you pay your bills on time.
Right.
No, make sure you pay your bills. Make sure you pay your bills. But they didn't tell me, you don't want to lose your car. So they didn't stress the on time. Yeah. They didn't tell, I didn't know about a credit score.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when I hear my dad talk about, my credit, he didn't take the time to break down credit to me.
Right.
So as an early adult, I was just make sure I make my car payment.
Right.
It might be 2 months late. I might have 2 car payments to pay, and I just pay one of them just so they don't come get my car, because I didn't know about a credit score.
Right.
So, it just go back to, I feel like a lot of that is at home, but school. I was talking to a kid earlier, and I told you about a teacher told my son, you ain't gonna need this in the real world. So now he looking at it as, if I don't need it, why I'm doing it?
Right.
So with that mind state, and then you put that in a 14, 15-year-old kid, you don't need it. So that just threw him left field. If I don't need it, I'm going over here. Right. I'm sleeping during this class. I don't care to be here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's hard being a kid when you gotta learn the whole aspect of life, and you got a teacher that's trying to encourage you to do this, and depending on what type of home you come from, you ain't got nobody at home to tell you this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. Or you got somebody that's like you said, man, hey, we gotta survive.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because I think having to survive, depending on who you speak that to, having to survive. If you speak that to an educated kid, he's going to figure out a way within the system to provide and to take care of his family. But on the flip side, the one that may have come from a broken home and they don't have that male figure and that mother figure to direct them, or they don't have the resources or the finances. Now, if you tell a kid to survive, he's going to survive with what he's learned from his environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times that's what we're being subjected to. Like,
right now.
Yeah, crime is on the rise, and because of I'm going to call it miseducation. Because even though we're teaching a curriculum, that's why I'm glad they're bringing back finance, because now you're showing kids positive avenues of making money. And I don't think society wants a lot of entrepreneurs if you look at the legislation and everything that's being passed. But these children, given the right knowledge, as smart as they are now, if parents get involved and if the teachers continue to do their jobs and we work together to legislate, because I know you and I were talking earlier, and like, it makes no sense that every fiber of our society is dependent on teachers. We can't function as a nation without teachers. So
everybody come through a teacher.
Right.
And that's why I say a lot that I think teachers should be the highest paid profession out.
Right.
There's no reason me as a barber should make more than a teacher.
Right. That is true. And definitely not athletics. I don't think that when we look at the entertainment, but it goes back to society. Like, if you're, I'm gonna use this term, and you know, I don't know if I get in trouble for it or not, but if you think about the elite, if we continue to allow puppets to pull strings and control us as society, we have to understand one thing. If a society that is willing to pay for you to be entertained, they pay more for entertainment than they do for education.
It's a distraction.
Yeah, we as a society need to sit down and think, like, what is wrong with this America that we're living in? To where you rather pay a man to entertain me. Kind of goes back to like if you think of how the monarchical system was. You had the king and queen, they get bored and they bring out what they call the joker, the clown. He comes out and he educates them. Now you have war, you have war, but you bring in out a clown to make the people laugh and not pay attention to where you might wake up and be attacked in the morning.
Yeah.
So I look at it from that standpoint, like, teachers, if people need to get more involved, and we really need to start lobbying the state, we really need to start making phone calls, we really need to start putting pressure on the people who make decisions on who's getting paid in education.
Yeah.
Because if we continue to I could care less about abortion. I could care less about this distraction of rising inflation, because if we pay attention to where all this is coming from, I think a lot of it stems from education, because if people were more educated, they would see the strings that are being pulled.
Be prepared for lack of knowledge.
Right. So I'm saying, like, the communities, I don't want to hear another person come in this shop and complain about the community if you aren't doing something for teachers.
Yeah.
If you're not doing anything to improve our educational system, I think there's no gripe or no complaint that any adult in America should have if you're not fighting to improve. Because how can I send my child to school and I'm sending them to school to a teacher who has a life outside of school? As inflation rises, we know how everybody's feeling a little bit of how the inflation is affecting, your home. So you picture a teacher not making what they should be making, having to deal with the situations that they're having to deal with, how much longer do we think men or women are going to go into this educational field and sit and put up with what they're putting up with children?
And you
If
forgot,
there's not at least
and you forgot to include to take the money out of their household to help support their classroom.
Right. You're
They're
like,
gonna buy extra supplies.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's why that was a big thing with me, like with doing the book bag giveaways,
Right.
and like what we did with buying school supplies and dropping them off at the school back here.
Right.
Like that stuff that I don't really talk about,
right.
but that stuff that need to happen.
Right.
Like I feel like a teacher shouldn't have to
No.
spend his or her own money to make sure this kid in this classroom
Right. On top of
got
not
the
being-
supplies.
On top of
Yeah.
being underpaid.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, that's a whole podcast on the underfunding of schools right there.
yeah, yeah. And that's where it really started.
Right.
That's where it really started. But like, just I told you, I watched probably like the last 30 minutes of the State of the Union. I care nothing about politics. Like I don't care nothing about it. But and that was the first time I done watched it since I was in like ninth grade, because my one of the teachers was like, "Yo, watch this and tell me what you learned from it." So I watched it then, but that was the first time I watched it, and I was just like, "Bro, I can't believe I'm sitting here watching these lies." But just think of, even if he was saying everything, Joe Biden was standing here and everything he said was the truth, and this is how it's really gonna be in the world, in America. How many people was watching a basketball game that same night?
Right.
I agree.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Being entertained, that got
yeah. So the entertainment is a distraction.
Right.
I love football, basketball, like I love it.
Right.
And every chance I get, I'ma watch it. But the more I'm growing as a person, it's not that important to me anymore.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm trying to include my kids into that mind state as young adults now. Like my youngest son.
Right.
It's cool. Like, it's cool to be into it. Sports, it's cool to game. Like, you can have all the fun you want.
Yeah.
But when it's time for business, handle business.
Right. Right. But I mean, you're a history buff. You said you like history coming up. Why did Rome fall? The Colosseum. People spent more time worried about the games and the fighting at Colosseum.
That's how they pacified the people, kind of into what you were talking about earlier. You know, they put on the games, they gave out free bread, yada yada, to distract them from what was going on.
Right.
Rome didn't fall in a day, but
Right.
eventually society collapsed.
But what happened, from from what I read in history, the people started worrying, they were more worried about the Colosseum, and things were passed, took their land. Things were passed, took away a lot of their rights. Things were passed, and before you knew it, they had all these high-rise buildings in the city, and they no longer own land. They were forced to live in these cities. And I'm saying that because it looks like it's being replicated. We see a lot of rentals now. We're seeing, we're starting to see a lot of things that took place in past societies that caused their destruction because we were paying too much attention to, the education had to, I never read about the educational system, but I'm going to think it had to be depleted. You know what I'm saying? To create a poor class, you undereducate the people. And we're seeing poverty rise. We're seeing more people standing on the side of the road, and people are blaming it on jobs. But if you're not qualified, if you're not educated, if you're not skilled, you're going to be standing on the side of that road. And we're not putting a point of emphasis on that anymore. A lot of privileges are gone. You can't just go to somebody especially with the economic pressures now. If you knew somebody that had a business or whatever, you used to could be like, hey man, I'm down on my luck a little bit. You mind if I work for you a couple of months till I get back on my feet? Those options are gone. And we're seeing it every day, but I'm a victim of it. I pacify some of my pains with education. With entertainment. I see these people standing on the side of the road. And it bothers me. My wife will tell you, like, if I don't have a few dollars in my pocket to give somebody, it bothers me. But I go home, I turn on that TV, I forget about it.
It's funny you bring that up because where I currently live, some of the big intersections, see a lot of people laying
Right.
signs up. You know, who knows what's going on with them, right?
Right.
But recently, like on the backside of like the median signs, they got these new signs up that's like, instead of giving to these people, give to the local programs and the stuff that we do, like, you know, within the city and all that.
Right.
So I found it very interesting because I moved back to this place and started noticing there's a lot more homeless people now than there were before.
Right.
And obviously things have kind of gone downhill with the economy and whatever have you. But a lot more people now. And now they're panhandling. The my city side is like, don't give them money. Give it to the programs that are doing the real work. So it's just interesting. But I think you're talking a lot of societal issues.
Right.
Which that's a whole nother can of worms. But, you know, education deals with a lot of the issues and problems that come from all that, right? Whether it's
the foundation.
yeah, the disadvantaged folks and all the problems that can bring into the schools, or just all the laws and the politics and everything else, to how, you know, the American capitalism, right? That's all about making money. Sports is big business, right? How much did the NFL make last year? Right? Billions of dollars.
Right.
So that's why people invest and are into that, because it makes money. Well, and you get like, you know,
And then, like you said, that moment, that 3 hours that I'm sitting here watching this football game.
watching the Giants lose, I know it's tough.
Yeah, man. Bro, don't remind me. But those 3 hours that I'm sitting here watching my Giants lose, I'm not worried about what's really going on around me in my household. Like, I ain't thinking about this water bill that got to be paid, or I ain't thinking about my son cutting up in school the other day. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like a momentary
It's a good distraction.
peace.
to have,
Yeah,
but you
yeah.
need that. You gotta have like something
Yeah.
there and have those other things. You can't just be
Well,
serious all the time.
Yeah.
But the important things need to take precedence.
But it don't help my mental health. Like, I got all this going on right here, and then I'm sitting here for 3 hours and I'm watching my team get destroyed for 3 hours. That ain't good with my mental. That ain't good for my mental health.
Not good for your blood pressure, I tell you that.
Especially with them new uniforms might make you feel a little better.
Man, I like them jerseys. Everybody talking about they ugly. I like it.
Yeah, you see?
For the Giants.
Oh, they got khaki pants now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ain't like the pants, but the jerseys.
What?
They got a color block jersey, red, white, and blue,
Yeah.
with khaki pants.
They try to look like something came out like the 40s or something.
Well, I'm gonna be honest, they look like jockeys or polo.
You guys got new uniforms too, though, right?
Yeah, thousand.
No, we ain't gonna talk about. I'm sorry.
We're
I
thousand
gotta
plate.
go on this.
Yeah.
Match catch.
So it's
Can't say
Yeah.
that bad about it.
Okay, that's what I was saying. I'm gonna stop right there.
But yeah, I do feel like there's more, and I'm glad we had this conversation, because there's more that we can do as a community to bring awareness. Because like, if I hear, like, we were looking at, I was watching the news, and you and I think you may have had ABC News on over there, and it was talking about a lot of teachers are not leaving the field. So I mean, you think about what kind of classrooms are you gonna? We've seen it. I've seen schools around here. I don't want to name any of the schools, but they have literally had to start going home, and they're having to subcontract outside of the school to get somebody to Skype and Zoom.
It's teacher shortage in the nation. Everybody's leaving. I just told you.
Yeah, what you pay for? You're not selected.
I was telling you earlier, like the 3 biggest districts in the state, their attrition rate last year was like 18 to 20%.
Right.
So 1 in 5 employees getting out of the game because it's so bad right now. We have one of the lowest, I think, this year when you adjust everything. North Carolina fell further again towards the bottom of state pay, like average pay. They're almost dead last when it comes to like GDP per pupil spending. Like that's out of 51 because they count DC. I think we were like 48 out of 51, right? And then like the top people are spending 3 times what we spend as a state on students. You know what I mean? So you can't expect to have good educational, schools, good programs that might help parents out or help kids out, figure out what they want to do with their lives. If the money's not there, you're not going to retain and bring in good teachers or admin or whatever. If the money's not there, you look at the corporate world. How do you get the best people for the job?
Right.
A competitive field,
Right.
I guess some competitive field, computer programming, engineering, whatever. How do you get the good people? You pay them more.
Right.
Now, but you got a bachelor's degree. It don't matter what your bachelor's degree. There are a lot of companies, they're like, hey, you hired, you know?
Right.
And it's something else I did, you guys talking about the sports and we was talking about budgeting. So two things I want to say. I hate to kind of reroute you guys, but as a teacher, I'm gonna tell you what. This is why I don't like them in the classroom. Because the average child say this, no matter what background they come from, no matter where they live, they either want to be an athlete or a rapper. Please, don't you at home. There is something in the earth other than being an athlete or a rapper. You're talking about 1% that made
Less than one.
less than 1% that man may not work. It is. I ain't telling you they can't do it, but in reality.
Yeah, I told
This athlete and rapper.
I told my boys, you let your talent pay for your education.
Exactly.
Right.
If you make it to that next level, it's a bonus.
Yeah.
But you use your talent to pay for school.
Right.
And if you play sport, that's right. That's what I told my kid. You know, you want to go out of school out of state, you use scholarship. Use that for a scholarship money. You know what I'm saying? And then on the other part about the budgeting, this like with us, you know, I'm also a tax counselor, but we don't talk about that in that series. But in our household, our children work. We try to teach them. And you tell kids all day, right? You tell kids, when you want to do X, Y, Z, you need to do this with your money, do that with your money. I was like, okay, well, you can't hear, you can read. So what I did, I printed out monthly budget sheets. I printed out, I printed out expenses sheets, monthly income, and for them to kind of write out everything. I told them, you know, the children save. I told them about their 10% target and then everything else. Because you got kids who, you know, well, people, even as adults, you might have somebody that has $100,000 income, and the other family over here making $50,000, but the $50,000 is even more, than better than $100,000. Well, how you get to do that? Because these people over here got a budget.
They know what to do with their money.
They're wise with their money.
They wise with their money, and the other one was this. Look, I got 6 figure income, baby. We spend the ball all out.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, when it's time for an emergency or something happen,
So that's
you
my
making all
problem.
your money, but where is it going at the end of the day?
That's my problem.
You know, and I tell you, you know, people, that's how I told my kids, because this is how I learned two things. If you write down the stuff that money, that you spend at a convenience store or snacks or fast food, I guarantee you, once you see that number on paper, and two things gonna change. You gonna start budgeting, or you gonna regroup, or how you look at. Because a lot of times, some people we're visual creatures, and until you actually see it, because somebody, like I said, somebody can tell you something all day. How many times we had to tell our kids, oh, don't go XYZ. Don't go spend all your money on this. Try to save something. You know, Miss Hattie, she taught me if I took $25 a week out of my paycheck. Some people can't afford $25 a week. Maybe you can afford $5 a week. And I did that for like a whole year. And then something happened the following year where I got sick. You know, I had a car wreck or something. And I couldn't really go to work for a while. We lived off of that savings. That $25 a week actually added up. And I'm saying my husband had his income, but we had something, you know, to fall back on, or a little extra, or whatever the case may be. And that's why I say it. Budgeting, being educated in finances is one of the biggest things, because they can eliminate a lot of poverty out of your life.
Right.
In sports and education, if your child is, I'm gonna tell you from my own experience with my kid, everybody's not big for a 4-year university, but there are such things that are called trades. If you got older children, they need to go take up some type of trades. Like all these kids, I don't care if it's a YouTube book. They got kids in elementary school now that are gamers, that are making more than the teacher. I'm just like,
Doesn't take much to be more than a teacher, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
It's not there.
So then I'm just saying, like,
It's bad.
I think that's a lot of times education. If you educated, you know, like you said, what's the quote is? If you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach a man how to fish, he eats for a lifetime.
Right.
And that's another last little statement I want to make to you guys about survival and living. This is what I had a conversation with my kids last week. I said, there's a difference between surviving and living. If you say surviving, you one of them people like, oh, I'm just going to work just to make ends meet. But now if you want to live, you can live on a budget where you set stuff aside and you can go on your little vacation or whatever, but you pay your bills first. You set your priorities straight first, and you do those things. But if you just want them people, well, I want no money just to eat and to pay my bills, then that's how you gonna live. But don't look at the next person. Don't look at the next person saying, oh, they think they're better than you. Nobody's better than the next person. They just have better thought process, or they budget more. And just like I said, you got a 50,000, you got 100,000. So just because a person always makes more money than you does not mean they're more educated.
That's where the stewardship comes.
Yes.
That begets
I
stewardship.
just feel like all that stuff is involved, and then that just goes back with the school system, the parents. You go spend $1, you spend at least $5 a week on somewhere, $7 to school. The teacher or the job. You got most teachers in the education system, they're trustworthy because we want to see it make it happen too. We're going to make our
But the problem comes in at when you say send money to schools, the first question a person is going to ask, well, where's the educational money going? Where's our tax money? So that's why the people, as a parent, me, myself, I know my kids have come home and I'm like, what do they need money for? So that's what you have to look at too. Like, that's why I said there need to be more involvement from the people, because we need to start asking these questions. You don't give me a name of something and say that it's this, but we're using it for something. So that's why I'm saying like there needs to be more involvement.
And I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And the same thing when me and Dave was talking about earlier. I asked him, did I ask you right before we started rolling? I asked him, I said, what do you think the issue is? Because we was talking about the condition of the classrooms. And that just goes to show. What was your response? He was talking about the PCA, the parents' involvement. Mm-hmm. They're just like today's society. I don't want to use government. We're not going to talk about it. But just like you said, if you're not getting involved, then don't ask me for the correction.
Right.
Because I asked them, because there are schools who don't have they don't have the funding in the classrooms or in horrible conditions. But there are classrooms that we've been in, they have taught outstanding knowledge.
It goes back to what you said earlier, the gerrymandering. Nobody pays attention to that. If you look at the jigsaw line, if you look at if you were to go and look in City Hall or the people who make decisions on where the money is allocated, if you look at how those lines are jigger-jagged, and that's what those jig-jags represent where that money's going. But how many people are showing up to the meetings, city council meetings? How many people are showing up to the budget meeting? These are open forums that a lot of people can attend. So because we choose not to go, we're watching the deterioration of our society.
Oh, that's at the local level, but then you get to pivot back to or go back to the state level too. Right. Most of the funding for public schools comes from the state. Right. The rest is local, and then the federal different. Right. So that's why I said voting is super important, because you're talking about where's the lottery money go, where's your tax money go? Well, the people in Raleigh control the purse strings. Right. Like I said, right now you look up, North Carolina has a $1.4 billion surplus. One party controls everything in Raleigh. They want to pass raises for teachers and everybody else, all the salary staff and hourly staff. They could easily do it. Right. And the governor would love to do it. He always wanted to give us more money, and then those guys block that, right? Right. So they've got all the power. They control the purse strings. So if you want schools to have more money, it starts with them. And at the local level, county commissioners and everybody else, Board of Education, all trying to work together. Then you run into the problem, how we get more. It's a public system, right? So where's our money? Taxes. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. Right. That's the double-edged sword, right? Yeah, everybody wants better schools. But do you really want more money coming out of more sales tax and where you live, or more money coming out of your paycheck? Probably not. Right. That's why it's so tough. That's why you see more and more. Education's really going to become privatized before too long. Right. I'm saying.
So that was my next question. Was charter schools. Public schools are starting seeing the competition of charter schools and the voucher programs. So like a lot of parents are now, I think we were talking about how children are leaving the public school system. And they're leaving because the responsible parents are finding out that there's alternatives, that where my child can get a better learning environment. It's pretty much the same education. It's just a better learning environment, and more emphasis are placed in areas where the public schools are failing. Now, do you think that that is a element of the funding?
Well, there's a couple different things here. If you look at the data, like testing data and all that, public schools perform better than charter schools.
Okay.
Past X amount of years, it might be 3% better, but still better on the whole. There used to be a cap on charter schools in the state, and then they lifted it. So now there's like 200 some charter schools. They open and close all the time.
Right.
There's like a handful of people in Raleigh who are on the boards of charter schools that kind of go over every time. Don't get me started. But charter schools funding comes from your local. They're public schools. They're not private. They're privately run, and some are for profit, run by those type of people, right? So they don't really care about your kids, or they're just trying to make money. Or am I going with this? So that money comes from your local school district. So the county I work in this past year, charter schools took $35 million from the public schools, and then the voucher program is to send your kids to private schools, and that took another $15 million. So that school district I'm in lost $50 million to go towards charter schools and go towards private schools. Now, in my opinion, we wouldn't need charter schools if public schools had the proper funding. There's tons of public schools that are magnet schools that specialize in STEM stuff, or the performing arts, or different disciplines. I know where I'm at, one school has an aviation program, like mechanics, stuff like that. Schools have so many different programs now that could be amazing, but they don't have the proper funding. And then people are like, well, I'm going to do it better. I'm going to have my own charter school. So then some parents are like, okay, well, let me send my kids there because maybe they think it's going to be a better environment. And then, the money is based off of head counts by like October 1st. So say you're running a charter school, you guys open up a charter school, you have the enrollment of 200 kids by October 1st. You're getting paid for all those kids, right? Then after 2 months, it doesn't work out for half of them. They go back to public school. You still keeping all that money. Public schools that they're coming back to, you don't get that money. So now they get extra kids and less money to work with.
Right.
So it just keeps taking away from public school. It's like you have a nice house and you got a leaky roof. You should probably fix your roof first before you start building rental properties and little Airbnbs around town, right?
Right.
Well, that's not what happened then. When you look at that private, the voucher money for private schools was initially designed to help low-income parents who can afford to send their kids to private school. But now they opened it up to pretty much everybody. You can make a lot more money. You have a lot of wealthy families who don't need it, who are already sending their kids to private school, who are tapping into that money. So there's milk in the system. And again, what's it equate to? Less money for your public schools, your institutions that have been around forever and ever. So, I mean, in every year you have to do more and more with less.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, me either. That's crazy.
Why not? Yeah.
That's crazy. So
I'm gonna start a petition to shut down charter schools.
I didn't say that. You can go on like the certain websites, like I can't remember the one, but you can see like all the charter schools that have shut down, and reasons why they shut down. A lot of it's because they're not compliant with the like EC stuff, like kids with disabilities and all the paperwork and stuff that goes with that, or their financial stuff is out of whack. So like, what's going on there? I mean, some of these schools they open and close. Some of them don't even open. Some are there a year or two and they shutter. You know what I mean? You see plenty of kids who go to charter schools and they come back. They go to charter schools, they come back. Now, it's not everybody. Some kids it works out for just fine. You know what I mean? But in my opinion, there will be no need for charter schools. You just support your traditional public schools. At the end of the day, charter schools are public schools. So why are we opening up more and more schools if we don't have enough money for the ones we already got? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, I know one thing. I hate to dive off in this, but I'm gonna dive off in it. Our children have been part of charter schools, public schools, and private schools. And what I've noticed sitting in on a lot of the meetings, references are made to single out one group. And so it seems like to me a lot of these charter schools are hindering diversity of our societies. And what I mean by that is those charter schools that we've sat in and the private schools that we've sat in, the parents that are bringing their children to these places, they like, I don't want to use the name of the school, but I remember one school we were sitting at, and we were sitting in a meeting, and they kept saying basketball players that don't attend, that they brought in a lot of basketball players, and these basketball players don't really support the theme of the school. They're just bringing in basketball players. And so, and if you look at the overall attendance of the school, it was the basketball players were pretty much the only students in that school that didn't look like all the other children.
Well, yeah, it's just another way of saying
That was a
segregation.
private school.
Right. Right.
Charter school.
When you look at a lot of charter schools, that's the way, whatever reason the parent doesn't like the school, send them over here, right? Try to segregate them. Now, what's really interesting is you guys got to look this up because they got passed, I think it's like 2017. They got this passed through like the North Carolina General Assembly. It was for, they in Charlotte, just down the road from here, just certain, I think it was like Matthews, Mint Hill, and two of the other like affluent neighborhoods were allowed to basically open up their own charter schools, but they would only be open to kids who lived in that zip code.
Zip code, yeah.
So essentially they're making public schools that are really private just for the kids that live there, right? So they're having their own public-private schools, so that makes sense.
With our money.
Yeah, because the normal public schools everybody's going to, right? You got all the disadvantaged people and, like I said, all the stuff that comes along with that for better or worse, and they don't like that. So like, all right, well, let's do this loophole.
So
now,
those-
they got that passed, so if they want to do it, they could do it. Now, from what I read the other day, I don't think they acted upon it, but it's there if they wanted to.
There are some schools in Matthews that does that.
Yeah.
Good.
Those there, when we were gonna live in that area. And all the kids that go to that school, that's live in that surrounding area. I don't even think they allow you. You have to be in that city. The city of Matthews or Mint Hill, what is it called? Those around them too. That's a very small, it's like the size of
But I want to say,
here.
that area. I want to say I seen it on the news where they wanted to break away from Charlotte Mecklenburg and just have their own.
Once it goes back to the
Have your own
segregation
schools.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's everywhere in the country, though. When you just look at, that like where people move to, you price certain people out, right? That's how you segregate in a way that's, I guess, not so obvious or
Right.
doesn't look as bad. I mean, that's what's happening.
It looks more lawful.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, this is one of the hot topics that I've ran across was taking place in Louisiana, where people actually broke away from a city and formed their own city. And in the forming of their own city, the city that they broke away from was still responsible for handling a lot of the tax issues. So that's what the money, now you separated, but the money is still coming from where you broke away from. And the money that's generated there is used for them only. And anybody that wanted to go to that school district, if they didn't live in that zip, then they couldn't attend that school district. But I mean, these are societal issues but it still comes, everything I think starts with the foundation of education.
All the society issues impact education.
Right.
Right. It's a chemical for everything. So.
Right. So, I mean,
Education's a mess.
You're educated children.
so I'm saying, that's why I'm glad we did this. I mean, we didn't touch a lot of topics and didn't go as deep as we could have.
Isaiah part 2.
Yeah, so I'm saying we're going to leave it open for a part 2, but this conversation needs to be had. Like,
Administrators out here.
right, like we really need to start down to sit and examine our educational system, or be prepared for the rise of crime, for the manipulation of people who have knowledge over the people who don't have knowledge. And we're already beginning to see these separations and see these problems cancer our society. And so, like, I want to thank both of you guys for sharing your insight and putting your viewpoint. And I really want to see more involvement from the public. Like, if you can think of anything that the people can begin to, like, I know all the time people say petitions, but if there's anything we can do to petition the people or just vote these people out who are not taking this seriously, and because like they bombard us with issues that are personal issues. Like me myself, I don't believe in abortion, but I don't think that should be the main topic of what our politicians are running on. We need to get, if the politicians, and I'm saying this, and I hope that many other people take knowledge of what I'm saying, but if they're not talking about things that are important for our future, that candidate, you should mute the TV and not even pay attention to another word that comes out of their mouth. Because it's time for people to wake up and stop being distracted with minute issues that doesn't affect everybody, and start paying attention to the issues that do. And I think education and should be one of them top three. And
Actually voting for
right,
and if you have your local district out somebody in the district that you don't agree with, if you get up and you go down there and you vote, that's when your change can start there.
right,
Because if you're not voting, if you go around there, you have the power to remove these people that you don't agree with. And these are
Right.
your tax dollars. So, and at the end of the day, again, that just goes back to power. People doesn't use their power. So here we are on ground zero. And the crime rates are going up and all this stuff and everything else, and it ain't solving anything. Because they don't want to get involved.
but I'm gonna end this on this. So now, with the conversation that we had and the problems that we see, it makes more sense for more prisons to be built than schools. So if that's the society that we want to live in, and we continue to allow by being, I'm not as active as I should be as far as in the community, as far as like paying attention to the politicians that we elect in locally. I've paid attention, but I haven't been as involved and as engaged. So I take blame. But I'm saying that if we continue to allow things to go the way that they're going, then we should be proud to say that they should build more prisons than schools. Because that's what going on now is going to equate to. You're going to need more prisons because there's going to be more criminals. It's going to be more desolate
You
situations.
ain't got your money. You don't got no money.
That's what- yeah, you got-
What you done is this.
That's when it's created more desolate situations. And the result of desolate situations, we're going to need prisons. So I'm saying it to anybody who listens. Let that register. More prisons than schools. That's where we're headed.
But think about this real quick. In all these prisons, how many of them are becoming privatized and for profit?
All of them.
And what's going on with the school system? Like we see more public schools open up. We see more privately run public schools and things like that.
Right. Right. So it's we're starting to see a power play. And if people don't wake up this power play, it's going to be executed.
I think.
Well, I want to thank both guests.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'll get to something, I guess.
Checks in the mail, right?
Well, I already got my check on.
well, I tell you what, you sure
You're in pen and pencil paper.
I need a certified.
Hey, look, tell I tell you what,
Why did it go?
you'll get your check on January 31st.